Welcome everyone to today's webinar Kanban Optimize the Flow of Value. So before I move further, I want to give my brief introduction. So I work as an enterprise agile coach and a senior agile program manager at American Express, and I have my experience leading agile transformations and coaching teams at multiple global corporations. I have worked in various capacities as like safe scrum master, release train engineer, agile coach, and in various different industries ranging from healthcare, insurance, retail, finance. So, and also I am passionate about keeping my knowledge up to date, and hence you see my degrees and my different certifications in safe, agile, Kanban, and other spaces. So what is our agenda today? And we are going to talk about, about what is Kanban, what are Kanban principles, visualizing work, and how, what are work in process limits in Kanban, and how we can manage our flow in a pull system, and how can we use Kanban as a tool for process improvement. And then also we are going to talk about one continuous improvement process technique in the end. So this is our agenda today in this webinar. So let's get started with what is Kanban. So Kanban is a workflow management method. It defines and manages services and it delivers knowledge work. So it helps in reducing time to market. It helps in maximizing efficiency. It helps in optimizing the flow of value. And it comes from Japanese. Kanban in Japanese means billboard or a signboard. So this is where it all started. It started around a century ago in manufacturing at Toyota in Japan. And then later on, it is taken over by IT in agile software development. So this was started in manufacturing, and then from there it transitioned this process because it was so useful. It got transferred to IT, and it started getting recognized over the years across several different industries and business units from there on. Now, it it started as a scheduling system for lean manufacturing at Toyota Production System. So in Toyota in around 1940s, they started something called just-in-time manufacturing. And this just-in-time manufacturing was based upon the customer demand. And what it meant was, rather than creating the products and pushing the product into the market, based upon the customer demand, the products and the inventory was developed and produced. So how it helped was, it helped reduce the cost because now we were producing only what was required. So that is where from where the concept of lean manufacturing came into picture. It helped minimize the waste and it helped optimize the processes and providing value to the end customers. And if you see this picture, in this picture you will see how a Kanban board used to look like at Toyota at that point of time. Now, talking about the 4 Kanban core principles. Kanban's first principle is to start with what you know. So Kanban does not force anyone to change their processes. It does not force anyone to change their systems or workflows. It's very flexible. It just overlays on top of what is currently existing. It highlights the issues to be addressed, and based upon that, it helps assess and makes changes to the plan and make sure that they are as non-disruptive as possible. It's very versatile, and it helps to introduce incremental changes to all types of organizations, which are very subtle, without a fear of overcommitment or cultural shock. So it very smoothly gets absorbed into your current processes. So that's the beauty of Kanban. And the second principle is Kanban, it goes for evolutionary change. It does not go for revolutionary change. It goes for evolutionary change. It's designed to meet minimal resistance, and it encourages small and incremental changes, evolutionary changes into the current process. And drastic changes, they are discouraged in Kanban, because if you drastically try to change a system or a process, you will have to face a lot of resistance, very heavy resistance, and your teams, your organization, they may not accept those changes. So Kanban, it discourages that. And it respects your current processes, roles, and responsibilities. So for example, if you are in an if you are following agile, and you have uh, roles like scrum master, product owner, so it does not say that you are going to change those roles. So it just sits on top of those roles. So it recognizes the existing process, roles, and responsibilities and titles. So you don't need to change the titles at all when you are implementing Kanban. So and it's whenever the logical changes are required, there you implement those changes without triggering any fear. So even you do not need to change the current practices. So for example, if you are following daily stand-ups, if you are doing sprint plannings, so you can continue doing that, and you can slowly uh, put in Kanban board. So maybe if you're using a tool like Rally or Jira, so you can put all these tools, they have you can put the Kanban boards on these tools, and you can slowly start visualizing your work using those different views or Kanban views within these particular tools that you are using. So you don't need to even change your ceremonies when you are implementing Kanban. And it encourages acts of leadership at all levels. So in this principle, what it says is that each and every one of the team member is a leader, and they have to portray leadership in their day-to-day work. And everyone fosters a mindset of continuous improvement, okay, to basically help optimize the performance at the team, department, or company level. So everyone should be a leader, and everyone should have a mindset of continuous improvement. That is very important. And one of the practices that or technique that we use for that is Kaizen, that we'll talk about in the end. So that's why it's very important that a leadership is portrayed at all levels in Kanban. Now, talking about the 6 practices of Kanban. So now, if you before I move further, if you have any questions, you can put your questions in the chat box, and I will address those. Okay. So 6 practices of Kanban. So visualize the workflow. So if you have seen the Kanban board, so it looks, so this is a very simple representation of a Kanban board. It's basically so if you see, there are 3 different states. The first one is the request, and then in progress, and done. Very simple Kanban board. And on this board, you have uh, different, you can put stickies, or you can have different cards, and you can put your stories, features. So because you can have Kanban at any level, you can have Kanban at the team level, program level, portfolio level. So you can use your epics, as your work items. You can use your user stories, you can use your features. So, and you can use it in any form. If you're using a virtual tool like Jira, use that. And you can use physical boards in order to create Kanban boards. So you can use Kanban in any shape and form. So each column on the board represents a step in your workflow, and each Kanban card represents a work item. And the most important thing is understanding what it takes to get an item from a request to a deliverable product. So you need to first understand, before creating this board, you should be able to understand your workflow. You should be able to understand your process. Then only you will be able to divide your workflow or your process into these different buckets. So when you start working on particular item, you pull it from the previous column into the current column if you have the capacity, right? So if you have capacity available, then you pull the work. So it's basically a pull system, not a push system. So you pull it from your previous state into the current state. And it helps identify the progress and also helps spot the bottlenecks in the system. Now, second practice, limit work in progress. So WIP limits, if you might have heard about them. What are WIP limits? So a WIP limit is basically attached to a particular state. So each and every state, if you see, has a WIP limit, and it is a limit to the number of work items that can be present in a particular state at a particular point in time, or at a particular point of time. So if you see this, the maximum number of work item in this waiting state were 3, but currently if you see, it has 4 work items, so it's a red alert. What it shows is that WIP limit is exceeded, so you cannot exceed the WIP limit. So that's the upper threshold of the number of work items in a particular state. So that is your WIP limit. So it's very important, if you're practicing Kanban, you should have these WIP limits, because what these WIP limits they do is they help keep the momentum going. They help keep uh, keep your work moving from one state to the other. It helps increase your throughput. Okay, and also it helps the teams not to burn out. It prevents the team from burning out and doing multitasking. So setting maximum items per stage ensures that a card is only pulled into the next step when there is available capacity. And they help identify all your bottlenecks. Once you apply these WIP limits, they become pretty evident. And once you start using Kanban, initially, you can, based upon your best judgment, you can just put the WIP limits just to start with. So and work with those WIP limits for some time. And then slowly what will happen is you will get a better understanding of where you need to change or update your WIP limits. And then accordingly, you change or update the WIP limits. But your initially when you start, just give your best guess, give your best judgment, talk to the team, and come up with the WIP limits. And then from there, you can keep on optimizing your WIP limits. Manage flow. So managing the flow is about managing the work, but not the people. So in Kanban, we are not managing the people, we are managing the work, we are managing the flow of work. We care about the movement of work items through the production process. We don't care about, if anyone in the team is busy or not. No, we care about the movement of work. And one of the main goals when implementing a Kanban is to create a smooth and healthy flow, right? It creates a smooth and healthy flow of work rather than micromanaging people or micromanaging individuals. And if we focus on the flow of work, it means that we are focusing on the flow of value, and it's going to provide us an increment in the value for our customers. Make process policies explicit. So once you apply Kanban, it's very important that all your team members, everyone, they understand what Kanban means, what you're going to do. Right? They should be clearly, all your policies, they should be clearly defined, published, and socialized. If people, they are not able to associate themselves of what is going on, if they do not understand what is being implemented, they will not participate in the change, in the process. So when everyone is familiar with the common goal, when everyone is aligned to the goal, to the particular goal, they would be able to work and make decisions accordingly, right? And they will be able to accept the change that will have a positive impact, because they will understand the value that they're going to get out of that change. Feedback loops, they are very important, right? So in order, if you want to become more agile, if you um, want to become, if you want to implement the value that you're providing, it's very important that you are implementing feedback loops. You are um able, as an organization, you are able to respond to the changes. You are able to do the or enable knowledge transfers between the stakeholders. So feedback loops are very important, and how you can do that? You can gain value, or you can gain feedback from the customers from time to time, from the business stakeholders. You can conduct review meetings like delivery review. Maybe from time to time you can look at how your delivery has been going. You can do operations review, strategy review. You can review your strategies from time to time. Based upon your requirement, you can decide the frequency, and you can uh, talk about the strategy review. You can look back at your strategy. You can do risk reviews, right? What were the risks we had in the past quarter, and now what can we do to mitigate those risks, so that in the next quarter we do not uh, maybe we do not we are not slipping over our timelines, right? So it's very important that we have feedback loops. And you might have even in Kanban, we have stand-ups, right? So as I said, in daily stand-ups, if you're already doing Scrum, you don't need to change any of your ceremonies. You can just uh, implement a Kanban board within your daily stand-ups, and uh, your ideal length of a daily stand-up is 10 to 15 minutes. But if depending upon your team, or upon your topics, or any discussion points, you can have different timelines for your daily stand-ups also. So so it depends, right? So the frequency of these feedbacks loops and the duration of those feedback loops, it all depends on the context of your organization or your organizational demand.
Pratik, I have a question here. I posted it in the chat window. As you talk about these feedback loops, one such feedback loop is within Scrum is the retrospective.
Right.
How, I don't know if you were going to talk about that in the subsequent slides, but I was just curious about how are retrospectives conducted in Kanban.
So very good question. So I'm not going to go into detail about retrospective, because it's just similar to the one that we do in our Scrum meetings. So basically what we do is we look at our Kanban board, and for example, if we are doing the retrospective again every sprint, at the end of every sprint, so we are going to look at our Kanban board, and we see what has been our throughput, how many stories are we being able to move from to do to the complete or to the done state. And if at all, was there any particular state where there was a lot of waiting time, where there was a lot of wait time, right? So we basically look back and try to identify the bottlenecks. And not only Kanban board, there are other metrics or tools that we can use, like we can use a cumulative flow diagram in order to look back and see where we lagged and what are our improvement areas. So it's pretty similar to what we do in Scrum, but the only thing is maybe the visualization or the type of metrics or tools that we may use may be different. So that's the only difference. Otherwise, the essence of retrospective is the same, even in Kanban. Just to look back at any of the gaps or improvement items and try to improve them in our subsequent sprints. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Now, improve collaboratively. So in the previous slide, I was talking about that how it is very important for the team to understand the importance and the value of Kanban once if we are implementing it. So it's very important that all of us align together as a team, and then we go for continuous improvement and sustainable change, and we have a shared vision for a better future. Because if we will have a shared vision and we'll have a common understanding, right? So if there are any problems which may occur, then we will have a common or shared comprehension of those problems and able to work together towards the improvement or resolution of those problems. So that's why it's very important that we work and improve collaboratively in Kanban. Now, to talk a little bit more about Kanban as a pull system. So you see this Kanban board, and in this Kanban board, in every state, you see that there are two substates. One is the in progress state and one is the done state. So what is your done state? So done state is basically if your task, it passes your code review. So your code review is done, for example, in this code review state, and your testing does not have capacity to pull it. So what will happen is your that particular work item is going to move into done state, and your done state is basically it's like a passive state where no work is being done, and it's also called your queue state. So it's a passive state where your task is just or your work item is just sitting and it's waiting to be pulled by your next state. So that is your queue state or your done state. And using this done state, it's very easy to identify your waiting times, because your items, work items in your done state or in your queue state, they should not be sitting for too long, because basically these items, if they're sitting for too long in your queue state or your done state, that means your waiting time is really high. And what it means is that your next state, the work is going pretty slow, right? Because they are not able to pull these items from your done state in time. So that's why these buffer states, queue states, or done state, they are very useful in identifying these waiting time bottlenecks. Okay. And also, by pulling work, teams eliminate multitasking and stay focused on the highest priorities. Right? So also, we have something called uh, classes of service, right? So in your classes of service, what is there is that you can basically divide your items, work items here in different classes. So in one class can be your expedited class, so which are your absolutely high priority items. So they need to be expedited first, right? So these are kind of your policies. Your classes of service are nothing but your policies that which are my high priority items, which are my standard priority items, like that, right? So that's another way, you can create policies so that you know which are my highest priority items and which are going to go through this pipeline first, right? So these are your cloud service. So
I think I have
yeah.
one question here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and tell me if what I'm assuming is accurate, or if it's done another way in Kanban. You mentioned the done state is going to hold those items
Mm-hmm.
until there's capacity available in the subsequent stage to be pulled in.
Right.
So is the aging of those items also considered when we're looking to adjust it?
Yes, yes, very good point. That if, for example, my next stage, it's taking too much time, and that can be multiple reasons. I may have less resources and I cannot increase my number of resources, right? So that way, what I can do is I can adjust my WIP limit. So maybe I can increase my WIP limit for this particular stage, because in my next stage I may have less number of resources. So that's why they are taking a little more time. So what I can do is I can increase my WIP limit accordingly, or adjust my WIP limit based upon the waiting time. Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you.
Now there's something called pull signals, right? So when uh, one state is pulling a work item from the previous state, that is based upon the pull signals which are triggered. And how are these pull signals triggered? They're triggered based upon your specified threshold, meaning when your number of cards or your number of work items in a column, they drop beneath a particular or specified, then these pull signals are triggered. And once these pull signals are triggered, going to get into the previous state and pull one item into the current state. So that's where your pull signals are very important. So the pull signal, it's a signal to the previous column that a new task can move further. Once the WIP limit is reached, no more task may be pulled until an outstanding one has been completed first. So if my WIP limit is reached, meaning if I have a WIP limit of 2, for example, in testing stage, and I have 2 items here, so I cannot pull an item from my previous state until one item goes into the next state. Okay. So your pull signal will be triggered once it is below, once your items in your current state are below the WIP limits. Then your pull signal will be triggered and it will ask you to pull an item from your previous state. And again, as I mentioned, it prevents team burnouts by ensuring that you are doing only as much work as you can manage as a team. And also it helps to prevent any tasks from being neglected, because as soon as you have buffer or capacity available, the pull signal will be triggered and you are going to pull an item from the previous state. So it will prevent any tasks from being neglected or being ignored. Okay, now I was talking about cumulative flow diagrams, and I was talking about waiting state in for when addressing one of the questions. So we use one of the tools, or one of the visualization or information radiator that we use in order to look at our workflow in Kanban is cumulative flow diagram. And each of these, so there are multiple bands within this cumulative flow diagram, and each band represent a particular state, meaning each of these state represent a band. And also if you want, you can create a band for these substates as well. So for in progress, within one band, and for done, you can create another band. And if your the idea is that, for example, if your so these bands, so width of each of these bands, it represent your work in process at a particular point in time, because your x-axis here, it's a time, it represents time, and your y-axis, it represents your items, your features, or your, it can be your stories. So at a particular or a given point in time, if you want to see the number of items within a or WIP, or work in progress or process, in a particular band, you can just look at the width of that particular band, and you will know exactly that, okay, my 5 items are in my development stage at this particular point in time. So that is why this is a very commonly used information radiator, in order to look back and see how am I doing in my delivery, or how's my pipeline doing, right? So for example, if you have a band for your done state, if you have a band, now ideally your done state band should be very narrow. It should not be too thick. Okay, because if it is too thick, what it means is that a lot of your items are in waiting and nothing is happening to them, right? And a particular point in time, which is not good, right? So your, either your done state, either they should be very minimal, very thin, or it should be maybe null. So this is how your cumulative flow diagram, it really helps in identifying how you are doing in your Kanban flow. uh, okay, let me move further, and how Kanban pushes for process improvement, right? So as Kanban exposes inefficiencies and gaps within a business process, improvement opportunities become apparent to the team, right? Because when too much time is dedicated to a process step, the team can explore if automation can speed things up, right? So when I identify for example, if I identify that too much time is being taken at a particular stage, so then I can think of an idea, okay, why my testing band is always so thick? Because maybe my testing is going very slow, or maybe I have less number of resources for testing. So maybe I should go If you are interested in any of the classes, then please feel free to contact me at pratik.gupta@10agile.com.
Pratik, this was very helpful. This was extremely insightful. I
Sure,
definitely a lot. Yeah.
thank you, Asim. I mean, I hope everyone got some value out of it. So with this, I would like to say thank you to all of you for taking a time, and I hope you learned a lot. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.